I would like to call today's meeting for the November 9th to order at 7:07. If we could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, we will be doing a moment of silence for our beloved member of Birch Grove Committee for Marilyn Tolland following that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands. Thank you. Dr. Willett, did you want to follow up with anything?
Yeah. Yes, I did want to make a statement about it. And thank you for doing the moment of silence. Starting with that, was really important. Sadly, an angel of the Tolland Public Schools, or someone we considered an angel, Marilyn Tolland, passed away on October 19th. She was a longtime employee of the Tolland Public Schools. She worked for the Tolland Public Schools for at least 20 years and spent most of that time working at Birch Grove Primary School, and is beloved by everybody there. It's a huge loss for them and for the school district. She's known and has been known as a gifted and loving educator. She always made a difference in children's lives, helping them acquire crucial reading skills, and it's not an easy thing to do. You have to have a special place, in your heart to do that. It's a difficult thing for kids to learn, and she really helped them learn it very well. She was known for having a very big and outgoing personality. She gave much joy to others, with a big smile and a big laugh. And she really helped brighten Birch Grove, and especially during hard times like the pandemic. She was kind of a Pied Piper for children, keeping their interest and instilling a lifelong love of reading. And she, did it through songs and trivia games and music. She was well known in the lunchroom for, always providing some lighthearted kind of festivities and that type of thing. She entertained and educated, and anyone who's ever done the job of teaching knows that, it's half content, but it's half performance art. You really do have to connect and have that energy, and she always did. Her loss is felt very deeply by everybody in the Tolland Public Schools, and very profoundly at Birch Grove. A very, very sad time for them, and even more so in the community. I'm sure she's touched so many lives. So, the moment of silence at the beginning is greatly appreciated, and she will be very, very dearly missed.
Thank you for your kind words, because it does impact our school and the students, and it's a sad loss. Okay, at this time, we can go to, well, we can't actually do approval of minutes because we do not have a quorum, correct?
Right.
Okay, so we can move to public participation, where at this time we will either, oh, this is tight, right? So if you're online, if you would like to please raise your hand. Dr. Willett will put a timer on there for 2 minutes. If you could please list your name and address for the record, you'll be given 2 minutes. And I'm not seeing any hands, so I will close out the public participation. And correspondence, we will also, we'll skip that, and he didn't email anybody the correspondence.
No, you can maybe give both next time.
Yep. No, we'll have to add the minutes as well, since we don't have the quorum to make sure we get that vote in. Okay, at points of information, I will open this up to board members, and we have Dana that's remote. Go ahead.
I just also wanted to express my condolences to the Tolland family. As Dr. Willett said, she was a beloved member of her community, and I've heard a lot about her, the games that she used to play with the children at lunch, so I just also wanted to express that and send our best wishes to them.
Anyone else? Oh, go ahead, Dana.
Thank you, and thank you, Ashley, for having the moment of silence. My family was blessed to have known Mrs. Fallon and to have impacted both of our students. So we were very lucky to have her in our lives. And she definitely made a profound impact, not just my two students, but my two children, but all those students at Birch Grove. So her presence is going to be sorely missed. And I just want to send my thoughts and prayers to her family at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Dana. Okay, we will close out. Dr. Willard, did you have anything to add into points of information before I close it out? I don't know, I
feel like there's something.
I thought so too, but maybe not. Okay, let's move over to our student representatives.
All right, hi. So we have some enthralling things for you today. So the end of the quarter happened. This is the first week of the second quarter. So, you know, the coursework has been pretty light. Won't be for long. And if people had midterms, most of them are over by now. And the quarter went pretty well. So we're excited for anyone.
And I don't think it was last week, but the week before we had pep rally, which I actually talked to some teachers about it and how they thought it went. They said it mostly went smoothly, and a huge controversy was the freshmen wearing yellow, but overall they said that it would be fine if they wore yellow. Like in the end, it wasn't that big of a problem, which I thought was pretty good. And they were saying that some of the chants the classes were saying were a little rowdy and much, but overall they were saying that they were looking forward to having a winter rally and a spring rally.
And the sophomores won the tug of war.
Yeah, we did.
Seniors, so we won. That's awesome. Homecoming happened the next day. I think homecoming went really well. We need to hire a new DJ. That's very important.
Only thing I heard.
But everyone seemed to really like it. I really liked it. Picture opportunities were great. So yeah, it went really well.
And then in regards to field trips, there was a marketing field trip to the Gillette Stadium, but it got canceled because not enough people signed up. The engineering pathway, as well as AP Chem, has the opportunity to tour the UConn chemical labs. And then for both Spanish and French students, there will be a Quebec field trip on February 9th to 12th, which is very exciting.
The DECA power trip is starting tomorrow.
No, I'm not going.
Okay, never mind. The DECA power trip is happening tomorrow. They're going to Washington, DC to a conference with the rest of the Northeast and Texas. Love Texans. So according to Miss Bridge, they are speaking there as a Tolland DECA, which is very exciting. It's the first DECA in Connecticut to do so. So that's a big occasion, and they're gonna have a lot of fun.
And then our last meeting on Monday, we teamed up with Smith to talk about our food drive. Instead of doing an individual one and then Smith does an individual one, we're deciding to collab. And we were discussing in the meeting what we're going to do to raise money and how we're going to do it, because they don't want like perishables. Instead, they want like direct money. So we're thinking of things we can do in the cafeteria to get more engagement. That was all.
Well, thank you for your enthusiasm about everything, because it's always nice to see what's happening in our schools. A lot of, it's kind of silly that didn't the 8th graders just go to DC as well? So it seems like Tolland is
Well, they're
taking over
still there.
DC.
Yeah.
There now.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it just.
You're both doing,
Yeah.
you're doing an amazing job. You're doing a great job of keeping
Thank
us
you.
abreast.
No, I love it. I'm telling you, it's good. Okay.
Fresh air.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Any questions for the ladies?
I have no questions. No,
No,
no questions.
no
Are
questions.
you sure?
She's like, are you sure?
I'm sure. And I'll be going at 7:30. I'd just like to let you know.
Absolutely, whatever you ladies need to do. that
I'm
are
staying because I finished my homework.
Not last time you were saying 'cause you were avoiding.
Yeah. I have a conundrum, you know, figure stuff out.
I have one of you.
That's perfect. Thank you, ladies, so much. I love hearing all the little pieces, even just what teachers thought about the pep rally, the colors, like you guys are really into it. So thank you so much. Okay, so let's go on to the Titan Energy presentation.
Yeah.
That was the first.
Adam, I got this here.
Yeah.
Okay,
How do you want me to do this? Do you want me to?
I will, I can just, you can say beep and I will move it forward.
and just so you know, this owl, I'm not sure if you're familiar, but it will pick up movement and voice and
Yeah,
it does.
I remember from the facilities committee meeting. So
Okay, perfect.
And in the item, in the item for the board, there are some charts and answers that, Jeff has provided, so, that's for your viewing pleasure here. FFC did already have this presentation, so a good number of board members have already seen this. And I mention that because, at some point here, we need to move forward with making a commitment to Titan Gen. And tonight was sort of the opportunity to have the rest of you see this, but I know that we don't have quorum. So just as, kind of point of info that we would want to at some point be able to tell them that we would like to move forward with them, preparing. So, in any case, I hand it over to.
Yeah, thanks for having me, everybody. I really appreciate it. So the purpose of my visit here is really just to explain who we are and what we do and what our thoughts are for the schools in terms of what the renewable energy opportunities are here. So you can, Dr. Willie, yeah, you can, okay, so yeah, you can
I
stay.
didn't see it, you gotta go. beep.
No, sorry.
Just kidding. You can say next slide. that was-
Okay, I mean, I could do it if you want. So long and short of it is that, we're the energy consultant for CCM, the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities. A couple of years ago, they ran an RFP to select a company to represent their members and help manage energy related projects for towns and schools that are members, which is effectively every town in the state. So we've had some experience working with Tolland Public Schools in the past for the electricity supply contracts that we take out to bid on the district's behalf every couple of years. So while we were in the midst of doing that this last round, Pete Zaba reached out to me to see if there was anything that we could do to help develop renewable energy projects for the schools. My understanding is that you've been really thorough about energy efficiency with performance contracting, and a lot of the major projects to make the schools as efficient as possible have been done. So this is really kind of the last piece of it to make sure that, using the infrastructure that you have, are there opportunities to help lower the school district's costs and be more sustainable. The way that we do that is we work with school districts to run RFPs so we can select a vendor to come in, build, own, operate projects and pass those savings back to the school district. That's a process that most municipalities and school boards, they have to go through an RFP process to select vendors, and there's plenty of options of good solar companies here in the state and regionally that, be qualified for work like this. So we like to leverage that sort of public competitive environment to get good outcomes for our clients. In advance of doing that, we put together layouts that we would use as a basis to go out to bid. So we have an idea in advance of, what kinds of projects we're looking at. And we can talk about that here today, but I really want to make sure everyone understood the process, and there's more nuts and bolts stuff to work out based on timing. Just obviously working during the school year is always a sensitive thing. So I would work with Pete and perhaps the facility committee and the board just to make sure that whatever projects you ultimately decide to move forward with are done in a way that's not disruptive to the academics of the schools. And this is just an overview, kind of a summary step-by-step of the typical process we take. It all starts with understanding utility data and energy consumption at the properties. I did go through the properties with Pete to do the audit to make sure that what we were going to propose was feasible. So we're really at that step now where we have all the raw data. and a timeline that is flexible at this point, but one I think that could work for the district. Really, we would move to actually issuing the RFP to bring vendors on site, do the analysis of the proposals that come in, and then in a given amount of time, come back here and present the results. So you understand exactly what was, what the scope of the work is, what the financial benefits are, sustainability benefits, et cetera. And then, of course, from there, we move step to step to the project implementation, and then a measurement and verification period, just to make sure that you get what you thought you were going to get out of the process. In terms of the level of commitment of working with Titan Gen and CCM for this work, we put the program together in such a way where there's no commitment by the school district until you select a vendor and execute an agreement with that vendor. So we could run this process theoretically. It's never happened before. We could run this process if the results aren't interesting, or that they don't appeal to the board. We don't find value in it. There's no obligation to move ahead. It's truly we do the work trying to make this as efficient for school boards and towns to embrace as possible, because it can be a challenge to come up with budgets to hire folks to do this work, especially if the outcome is uncertain to some degree. So from that perspective, we like to try to make it easy. We are compensated by the winning bidder, so we write the project management fee for CCM into the RFP document, so everyone that bids on the project incorporates that fee. And that program management fee is paid in 2 milestones. One, when and if we can get you to an executed agreement with the vendor for the projects. And then the second milestone is when the projects are actually built and operational. So we like to make sure that we stay aligned with you guys through the process to see it all the way through, and have it be a success at the end of the day. In terms of the actual projects that we've looked at, I did prepare a few short slides so you can see in advance what we were thinking. And there's still some flexibility here based on how we want to mix and match some of these to get the most financial benefit back for the school district. But I think as a starting place, these layouts are good. So Dr. Will, if you would mind. I think maybe I skipped a little bit over the Titan Energy part. Just to fill in and address the slide here. So Titan's been in business about 20 years. We're located in Hartford, with really strong New England presence. That's really kind of where most of our clients are, and we have a particularly strong presence in the municipal market here in the state by virtue of our relationship with CCM. So we work with about 40% of municipalities in the state on a one-to-one basis. We've in terms of your neighbors here, South Windsor, Mansfield, those are clients that we're working with right now doing kind of ongoing projects. But we're a full service energy management firm, and I've been with the company for about 12 years, and I manage these projects. So you'd be working with me on a one-to-one basis. Thank you. The next slide. So again, just some preliminary thoughts. And these are the result of doing site walks, trading some ideas back and forth with Pete about where he'd like to see projects built and what where it's possible. For the high school, the roof is, I think, at year 19 out of a probably 20 to 25 year lifespan. So the idea is to stay off of the roof. But what we are able to do is install parking canopies that have solar panels on top of them. So areas of the parking lot would get covered parking, and that would yield the sort of anticipated or get the benefit that we're looking for without necessarily having to be on the roof. And we did look at 2 possible locations, but based on the site walk and based on the program rules, which are complex and lengthy, so I won't get into every little nook and cranny of how the programs work, but we had decided to perhaps move away from the idea of putting panels to the west and instead focus on the area to the east. The next slide. So for the middle school, We did the initial layout and it came to light that there was a section of the roof that was not as new as the rest, so we scratched that. We have looked at the feasibility of some ground mounted solar or some parking canopies as well, but we do like the roof here because it is new. And that's generally what we look for if possible, try to be on the roof and you know, avoid building anything unnecessary. Birch Grove, obviously being a new school, we have plenty of roof to work with, of course. You know, pretty straightforward here. There's not a lot of space on the ground. There's not really much in the way of parking area either. So this would be a straight roof job. Next. Yep. So also new roof here. Similar thought process as Birch Grove. Yeah, we'd stick almost entirely to the roof here, I think. Yeah, I don't know. We didn't propose any other locations. So this slide is a little bit dense, so I'll try to kind of put it, you know, wrap it up as neatly as I can. So basically there's within the Eversource incentive program, there's opportunities to send power both back to the building and back to the power grid. So, and there's also a virtual net metering agreement that the town had executed a few years ago, I believe. So there's some credits that flow back to the high school and to the middle school. So, you know, we're being mindful of that. We don't want to do anything to interfere with that agreement. What I would recommend in that case is send, again, not to get too much into the weeds here, but send all those credits to the high school. And with the variety of different projects we have, some would be in front of the meter, which means the energy goes back to the street, and then behind the meter would be energy is utilized on site. And again, trying to maximize the extent of the space on the roof and anything that we might do on the ground to ultimately yield a financial benefit back to the district, about 120,000 per year. And again, I would just want to stress that these are estimates based on other similar RFPs that we've run for school districts. So at the end of the day, the RFP process will give us exactly what the options are and what the financial benefits look like. But I want to at least give some sense of what the outcome would look like at the end of this process. If, you know, all goes according to plan, we move forward, you know, these projects get built. Again, some of these system sizes, you know, they're well, I don't want to say exactly work in progress, because I think based on the site walk we did and the evaluation we've done up front, that we feel pretty confident that these will be what the actual systems are. But again, you never know. Vendors could have different ideas that we didn't identify, and that could change things too. So, but generally speaking, I think given where the incentives are today, and you know, kind of how mature the industry has become, I think this is a really good opportunity to utilize the real estate that you have here to make the leap into solar. I think you can go to the next slide too. Yeah, I mean, those are just example projects, so we don't really have to do all on that, but
That did the info that you had provided, I can also share.
it's basically what we talked about here, so that would just kind of be a little bit redundant, but so just to recap, and I open up for questions, of course, you know, the idea here is you know, we've got a really great incentive program from Eversource. The federal tax benefits through the Inflation Reduction Act, although don't directly benefit Tolland being a not-for-profit entity. They certainly help with developers who come in and build, own, and operate these assets, and you know, either sell power back to the school district or share in the revenue that comes from these projects. So, and also we have kind of the reality of heightened energy prices that I think are likely here to stay for the next few years. So, you know, I think the thinking here is this is a good way to get in front of what is likely going to be a significant increase in traditional energy costs when your current contract with your supplier expires in about 18 months or so. So what we're trying to do is dovetail the end of that contract with these projects so that any increases that are coming down the pike are effectively neutralized. And I also did share, this came up during the facilities committee meeting a couple of weeks ago. I put together there was a request for some savings analysis that correspond back to other similar municipal projects that we've done. So included that in the packet. References, of course, are not a problem. And maybe I'm burying the lead here, but I think I just want to mention and make sure that's clear that at the end of this process, there's zero cost involved for the school district. So if you move forward with these projects, there's no situation in which the district comes out of pocket. So these systems would all be owned, operated, and maintained by the vendor that you select. So
That's actually one of my questions, because, you know, I have a few questions,
sure,
but,
we can, yeah, I mean, if you, I'm happy to take questions then.
is there like a battery storage, or is this purely just like you were saying, behind the meter and?
Yeah, so I talked to Pete about this, and he had asked me to include a battery storage component for 2 of the schools, the intermediate and the middle school. And I'm, 100% happy to do that. There's no reason not to do it. He said that backup power was an issue, I think, at those schools. So my thought was write that into the RFP as an alternative bid. If folks wanted to include that they could do so, and that would be evaluated alongside just the traditional solar projects.
Okay. What are like the lifespan on the panels?
20 years, sort of the minimum. Generally, what happens with these contracts, and what I like to make sure happens, is there's really, kind of three outcomes at the end, because these are 20-year contracts, because the useful life of the equipment's generally 20 years at least, usually the warranty for 25, but the incentive programs are effective for 20 years. So that's why the vendors like to line up the incentive term with the kind of the useful life of the equipment and the likely useful life of the roof too. Generally the roofs have 20-year cycles, 25, depending on wear and tear and how well it's maintained and, what kind of roof it is in the first place. So generally, 20 years is kind of the baseline expectation. And at the end of the agreement, either the options would be the vendor takes the equipment back at their cost, reasonable wear and tear of a 20-year roof expected, but basically restoring the site and taking the equipment all at their cost.
That was another question, because I know I looked into solar for our house, and I drilled the guy down about all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
But I do know that if something stops working, it's out of commission, sometimes you would actually have to pay for said panel to be removed. And then you're also looking at the cost of fixing said roof or whatever update that would need to take place. So that was kind of a couple of my questions that you had, but I don't know if it would depend on which vendor you would choose and what their, process is and what they cover for warranties. Like I said, I know sometimes they charge when things happen, even though it's supposedly under a warranty. So those are my concerns. I think it's great. I think having a battery backup and not, if that's something that is able to happen, I think, yes, it could be very beneficial, but I do know that sometimes if something happens with panels, the cost skyrockets.
So commercial solar and residential solar are pretty different in a lot of respects. And I'm not sure how, I can't speak to how the agreement would have been structured with the vendor that you were talking to for your project at home. But
They wanted me to cut down trees, and I said, that doesn't sound very environmentally friendly. So
it's a little
we
ironic.
didn't go the solar panel way.
Yeah, and it's, I would say because I'm not in this residential solar business, but I have talked to a lot of people who have gone that direction. I generally find that the contracts for commercial solar are much better than those for residential. I think the residential contracts tend to put a lot of responsibility on the homeowner ultimately, that, to your point, if there was an issue, could have potentially eat into the value that you got from the project in the first place. And another thing too, which is great about commercial projects, is that the vast majority of them are ballasted systems, unlike residential roofs, which typically are not flat, which would require penetrating the roof to anchor the panels. So with these buildings, this would be a ballasted system. So we kind of get away from a lot of those, so you could say, concerns about roof leaks and stuff like that. There is a robust kind of plan to ensure that the warranty stays in effect, which I can touch on, but generally speaking, in these agreements, the responsibility for a warranty claim, to provide any fixes to the system, and since it's third-party owned, their return is predicated entirely on that system performing like it should. So it gets monitored very, very thoroughly. Any failures, which usually occur within the first 6 months to a year anyway, and are identified quickly, that would not result in out-of-pocket costs for the school district. That was all covered by the installer, not just on a warranty basis, but like on a workmanship basis too. And the name of the game here for me really is to put together a plan that insulates the school district from as much cost as humanly possible. The only instances I could think of that would incur a penalty on the contract is if, let's say that there was some work that had to be done on the roof that had nothing to do with the solar panel operation, but required decommissioning a portion of that. Generally, the way developers deal with that, and some of this depends on if it's front of the meter or behind the meter, but if it's a situation where they have to decommission a piece of it, there could be a situation in which you would have the loss of the revenue from the project because it's not producing anything, so therefore there's something to give you. Or generally there's like a 3 to 4 week grace period if they have to decommission part of the system so you can do work on the building, then that's covered. If it's an extended period, like above a month, then basically what happens is they start doing calculations of, how much foregone revenue is there for them because of that. And again, every vendor takes it a little differently, and this would be fleshed out in the contract review phase. We'd want to understand where those thresholds are and what the penalties are, and then use that as just the basis to evaluate, is that the best deal for Tolland or not? But if there's ever any issue with the equipment itself, that is purely borne by the vendor in terms of if there's any lost revenue or production on their part.
And there's no risk from having Titan Gen do this, because once the proposal was provided, the district decided it didn't want to do anything else after that point. There's no obligation.
Right. I mean, we structured it on purpose that way to make the programs accessible to people, especially those who don't have any experience with this yet. But those are the kinds of details too, like on the roof piece, there's a pre and post, just like from a process perspective, there's a pre and post installation checklist that, for the overburden, to make sure that, the roofer is present, the manufacturers for their material, their rep is present, and the installer pre and post inspection sign off to make sure that whatever work is done on the roof ensures that the warranty stays in effect. So there are checks and balances on that process too, because that's frequently a concern that most folks have, and I totally understand where that comes from. The fact that these are nice flat roofs and robust buildings, being able to ballast the systems, which is basically just a glorified cinder block that weighs down each rack that the panels sit on, makes this a lot easier as well.
That was gonna seem like a silly question, and I don't know if it's more toward you, but we have had, snowstorms where we've had people volunteer to take snow blowers up there and get rid of the snow. What happens when we have solar panels up there and we have all the snow?
Excellent question. We did ask that during the FFC meeting. And I think, what we'd probably be doing there is looking at writing contracted services in that could work around those things, right?
Yeah, so basically the way, and the last time that this was addressed in practice was, I think, 2011 or so, the year that, I don't care where you were, everybody seemed to be up on their roof with a shovel, clearing snow. So these are, part of the process for these projects is that if you, when you select a vendor to decide to move forward, we'll hire a third-party structural engineer to go through and evaluate all the buildings to tell us exactly where in these buildings do we need to be worried if there's any additional weight from those kinds of storms, like if there's that 100-year snowstorm or whatever, 500, whatever, year snowstorm you want to think about. Because if there's any safety issue whatsoever in terms of structural integrity, that's the third-party engineer's job to flag it. And if we have to redesign the system, relocate panels, take panels away from the original layout, that's what we have to do. And then generally for, those events where you have to have somebody on the roof, that's usually addressed in the contract with the vendor to specify at what point does the vendor need to come out and address snow accumulation on the roof.
So it would be part of that contract. There would be someone who would come in.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I asked all my questions. Do you guys have?
I have two. I know you mentioned the 18 months, but assuming we went forward with this, what would our timeline look like for start and completion?
Probably about 18 months, and I'll give you two reasons why. So there's, well, I guess maybe three. So these projects have to follow a cadence that is very, very much dictated by when the utility accepts applications for projects. So if you miss one, you're kind of on the sideline for the next 6 months. The first opportunity for 2023 to get incentive paperwork in, it's like March 1st to March 15th. So that's really kind of the first window that opens up. If you miss that, then you're in September. Basically the same opportunity comes again. I like to have more at-bats than fewer, just because it's a competitive process to get these awards. They're sought after. It's there's a finite pool of money available for each project. And what happens is the utility accepts applications. They accept the folks who ask for the least amount first until they run out of money. And then they will restart again in 6 months, new pool of money, same process. So I factored in where we need to be. I feel like to be confident that we get those awards. But if you miss that window, you're basically, you have to sit and wait for 6 months. And then the other determining factor is school year, just where you are in the calendar and how sensitive you need to be, depending on, when certain work can be done, when it can't be done. So that usually adds a little bit of time, especially if we want to try to hit doing the majority of the construction in summertime, just for everybody's sake. So there's that. And then equipment lead times is just longer today than it used to be. I tell people that the sooner, if you're thinking about like milestones, what I would suggest is if we get the RFP out, get vendors in, I do the analysis, and I can get back to you guys within, 6 weeks, 8 weeks with the results, everything buttoned up to review, then that puts you in a good position to make a decision, I think, and have everything good to go for March to be able to submit. If, collectively we just can't pull it together in that amount of time, then all right, you're in September, but there's still things that we can do in the meantime to get the projects underway. It's just we won't have the incentive in hand, which is a really important piece of it. So I would say, my goal is 18 months. If we hit snags one way or another, that would just add, some time here. And I think, in talking to Pete, his view was if we could do, try to do whatever work that's not on the roof, be a little more flexible there, but then save the louder, more disruptive work for the summer times. That was his ideal, and that's pretty common with what, we do this work with school districts all the time, and everybody's got the same feelings on that.
That's no
So,
surprise to you.
yeah, it's
So we wouldn't have people hammering while we're trying to power.
yeah, and the other thing too, that I think a lot of people, yeah, one of the things too that with ballast systems, there's no, I think sometimes there's a perception that the work is like someone's going to be up there jackhammering, which just it isn't the case. But especially with the ballast system, there's no penetrations. I mean, it's foot traffic for sure, and want to minimize disruptions to the best that we possibly can, but there are ways that we can schedule this where, we'd write it into the RFP, so there's no surprise for the vendor that, this is the schedule that you have to follow. And they'll price it accordingly and do the job that way. So, and time flies. I mean, it's already November, and by the time we get the incentive in hand, it'd be like late March, early April. And that gives everybody a good runway to really be ready to hit the ground running for that we'll call disruptive work for summer 2024. And then having a slew of other things they could be doing in the meantime to get ready for that.
This will be important too, because most all projections are that our energy costs are gonna go up significantly. So having something that offsets that is gonna be a really important part of our overall plan. So this is a no obligation opportunity for the district and the board.
It's an awesome STEM opportunity too. I mean, there is that aspect of it. I think a lot of school districts have, that I've worked with have used these projects, integrated them into the actual curriculum. I'm not sure, how they've done it exactly. But, there's definitely opportunities there that I think, make a lot of sense for educational customers to, use these projects as a learning example for people, for students.
And then for the high school, did we consider waiting until we install a new roof there rather than do the parking lot option?
I think that when they do their engineering eval, we would see where we're at.
Well, I think he said it was 19 years on a roof or something, and
Yeah,
that
I
was
think-
not gonna happen.
I believe it, and what you could do though, and not to say that this would preclude you from doing it. Let's say the roof has 5 good years left. You're not gonna replace a roof with 5 good years. DAS would probably, I don't think they even begin considering funding roof projects until at least year 20, or it has something to do with the warranty period too. I think until the warranty period is up. So you could always do a phase 2 when the roof is replaced, whenever that might be. I mean, sometimes you can get 30 years out of a roof. It really depends on what kind of material it is, how well it's maintained, how good was the initial install. So it's hard to put. It can be even for a skilled roofer, it can be hard to put an end date on precisely when a roof is going to need to be replaced. But my sense was that it's got at least another 4 or 5 years left, most likely, based on what Pete told me about the shape it's in.
And I do note that Pete is, thanks to Pete for being in our audience today. He is available. If you want to ask him any related questions, or Pete, do you have anything that you would like to share?
All right, I think I'm on. Yes, no?
You are, yes, you are on.
Okay, all right. Sorry, I'm trying to grill some chicken at the same time, guys, so.
You just made
I
everybody
will. Yeah, yeah, I think Adam's done a great job. I will say a couple things about the roof. We have a rubber roof there at the high school that has a 20-year warranty on it that started in 2004, 2005 year. So we are not in a position to want to put those panels up on that roof yet. DAS will actually underfund our reimbursement rate based upon doing a roof before its usable life is up. So we'll get penalized on that. And that was estimated to be about a $5.5 million project. So that's a lot of loss money, even if it's 4 to 7%. That's the first piece. The other thing I wanted to mention is the 2 newer roofs outside of Birch Grove, both for TIS and Tolland Middle School, both have 20-year warranties with 2 5-year renewable terms. So effectively, both those roofs have 30-year warranties on them. They are much thicker than a rubber roof. So I think they're pretty good candidates for having panels on them. The middle school was also designed to have a second story on most of its areas, even above the single story portions. So I don't consider weight really to be any sort of issue here. You know, again, our biggest concern is that our current supplier rate contract, which is with Direct Energy, expires in December of 2024. And our rates could be in the position to possibly double for what we're over what we're paying now. Big based bond markets. And again, I think we have to consider trying to, you know, in essence, kind of trying to come off the grid a little bit, or at least supplement power. Because, you know, again, you know, just the cost of energy is, you know, the last couple of years has just gone up a lot. And you guys very well see it too, because, you know, there used to be a lot of people that, power generators that you could shop around, that you can choose different, generation, providers. And now Eversource currently has the best rate. They really have the only rate almost. There's a lot of these firms that are, dropping by the wayside, and Adam can kind of speak a little bit more about that, but there's almost less competition out there now. And so, you know, we've got to think, I think we have to be practical and kind of think about how we can, you know, lower not only our energy costs, but have cost avoidance, which was really the reason why we did the ESCO project back in, you know, 2013, 2014, and doing the geothermal at the time and so on. And I'm open to any other questions, you know, if anybody has any.
Thank you, Pete. That was a lot of information. Any questions for Pete?
No, we talked about this with Pete when we did the budget rounds. Do you remember, Pete? We were talking about solar.
You did tell us about this, yeah.
Jen, the mic is.
This might, yeah, just because he's on the screen there, you have to talk.
Oh. Sorry, I'm sure he heard me. Anyway, just interesting.
Yes, I did.
It's interesting to come around, see it come around full circle from those initial conversations that we had.
Yeah.
You know, one other thing, just to add some context to what Pete said, so I wasn't involved in this, so I can't take any credit for it, but my colleague and Pete, you know, were pretty proactive when COVID was kind of at its worst and energy markets, just like everything else, completely collapsed. And, you know, they locked in an exceptionally good rate. I believe, Pete, maybe in the 6 cents per kilowatt hour, just for the generation alone. Eversource today is 12 cents, and in December, it's likely going to go to about 17. So, you know, they did exactly the right thing at the right time. It's just that can only, you know, and they did it for as long as they could. So 2020 to 2024, you know, 18 months left, here we are, energy markets are completely, it was the complete opposite situation we were in back when, you know, COVID first came about. So I think that's, you know, again, part of the reason why, from my perspective, it's like, we only have so many tools. You've already taken advantage of most of them. You've cut your energy consumption way down. It's always the first best thing you can do. You've bought energy at the right time. And now it's really just a question of, can you make your own, to kind of fit that piece.
Chance to make their own. And Mr. Staub has done a fantastic job of, you know, making sure that all the opportunities to do and save money with energy have been available to us. Whether it's oil rates or working with Adam or getting us new opportunities, Mr. Staub has done, you know, an incredible job, and has saved the district thousands, I would say hundreds of thousands, you know, over time, and much appreciated. So
And he
Yeah,
walked away from there because he had to save his chicken.
Sorry, guys, I just brought the chicken inside before it burned, so.
And then most importantly, Pete, what kind of chicken? Or is it a barbecue marinade?
Well, it is actually chicken. We're gonna be cutting up for tacos or. some other
I
things.
see.
So see, you said everything and he had to go to his chicken. So
All right, chicken is really.
it's
not
okay. I
so
just
much
pointing it out to
in
you.
the solar power.
I think if he lives close, I might have to stop by before.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, you can watch the video, Pete, if you need an ego.
All right. I just, again, I think I heard most of what Adam said. I just want to say that, I think we've come a long way from an energy perspective. We have, we did the ESCO. We've done about everything we can on the plumbing side. We've done just about everything we can on the lighting side. We took the Honeywell ESCO lighting portion further and did our own project, which Eversource funded about 66% of that project that we did 3 years ago, where we took lighting that was because the Honeywell project was 32-watt lighting. They went down to 28-watt lighting, and we took that all the way down to 9 watts. So we've done a lot on that side. We did the geothermal with a couple schools. We did variable drives. We've done caulking. We've done new roofs that had to meet the current codes with roofing insulation values. We've done new windows. We've done new doors. So I think, we've done a lot of what we can do on building system. And now it's gotten to the point where, the next phase of this is what actually can we do from an energy burden perspective. And I think it really gets down to can we actually use our school space, use our town space, similar to what they have with the Tolland solar farm. Can we actually generate power? And I think that's the direction that we are going to have to go in. And the nice part about it, and I think Adam hit this pretty well, is there are lots of incentives out there. So I think we need to at least test those waters and see what kind of responses back we actually get. And like Adam said, we actually hold the cards and we can say yes or no. But I think it makes sense for us to at least see what's out there.
Well, thank you very much, Pete. I think we do have another board member with questions.
No, I was just going to say that I definitely have learned a lot about solar panels this evening, and your presentation was excellent.
They're good.
And
I'm available for rent too, for
yeah,
parties.
and Mr. Saba, I definitely appreciate all that you've done for our school district and being very mindful about our energy use. And I think sounds like the natural next step. So I'm really looking forward to the proposal and the assessment you do of the schools and, taking this process further.
I like how you phrase that, the natural next step.
Yeah,
I
it seems
like
like
how
it.
you phrase that because I do think that this is the next step. For the evolution of how energy goes. So, thank you very much for everything. And no other, Dana, did you have any questions?
No, actually, it was very informative. My biggest concern was the snow thing that you were talking about, Ashley. Like, what do we do with the snow? So I'm glad we were able to answer that. But no, it was very informative and thorough. And like Sophia said, it does seem like the natural next step, 100%.
Dana, I actually want to piggyback on one of the snow things. For my 8+ years that I've been blessed to work for all of you, we've only had to shovel one portion of the high school once. And that was the back part of the high school that was right above where the kind of the cardio room is, the workout rooms in there. a lot of snow had drifted there. So I have done what we can from a proactive perspective in trying not to get to that point with the snow. But I also have to say on the newer roofs, because the insulation factor is much greater, we actually had to build up those roofs higher so that the edges of the roof have actually become more shallow. So wind actually helps us a lot of times in blowing things off of the roof. It's actually worked out pretty well with leaves, and other things where there's not been as many drains to do it clean. And we actually have not seen as much drifting actually that's been building up on the roofs, just because the edges are much more shallow. So.
One last question.
Sure.
And Pete, we do have the pest control companies coming, right? Occasionally, just yes or no, we do have them coming.
They actually do a site visit every week at every school minimum.
Could we harness the rodents, put them in
Get them little shovels?
circle things,
Oh.
Get them running in wheels, and could that
Turn the
generate
generator?
energy for the district?
I mean, you might be onto something. You might
Wanted to
have
see if that was a
PETA
possibility.
calling you, but yeah.
All right, well, good. Thank you very much. Any other final?
No, thank you so much. I think that we all had a lot of questions. I think you answered them very well, and I think we are the natural next step. I like that.
Yeah, thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
you.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so on my little list here, goal setting. There we go.
Thanks, Nick.
Yes.
So two things. First, been to literally hundreds of school board meetings, best student representative.
Ever.
Presentation.
I got you.
Yeah.
Really good. You're very comfortable talking to cameras, which a lot of high school kids aren't necessarily ready for that. So awesome job. Second, I wish there was a consulting firm like that for residential, because we're going through that too. And I'm more confused now after sitting down with salespeople than I was before I started. And I'm still not sure I'm ready to pull the plug. So, yeah. So this was helpful for me too. So,
Really a lot of good questions.
yeah. So we're at, I hope, sort of the tail end of a process, at least for us collectively, and I think it's going to fall into your superintendent's bailiwick to start operationalizing all this. And, we missed you, Ashley. I know you had your hands full, but, and the other frustration, I guess, I have is 3 people going to do this work. 4, because we have one online. So that's half. You have 7 or 9.
We have 9.
Okay, we're going to do the best we can.
Yes, we are.
Okay, so what we did originally was, there was a brainstorming session followed by a sort of consolidation, and I think Walt did a good job of locking in language. So I guess I want to start with, before we go into what our work is tonight, which is to sort of talk about your role in all this, would be, can we just go through those 3 goals and make sure that they are where you want to be? So, I don't know if you have copies. I actually made,
I just noticed these are in the.
I saw it somewhere and one of the things I was reviewing.
I had to recreate it because I couldn't.
No, I got it right here. Hold on.
Oh, that's maybe where I read it, the minutes from last time, I think.
Yeah, I read it somewhere too.
Yeah,
Put it
I
in
think
my
it was
summary of
minutes.
that thing.
Here's the, I got it right here.
Yeah, you had that whole overview.
Okay.
So there's a couple different places we could pull them from.
Right there. Roundabout way of getting there, but here's.
You have them? Oh, she has them.
We just had it. We just had it.
Oh,
Yeah, it's just, I set up something. Here that,
I can start reading them if you want.
yeah, start
One
reading
was
them.
engage in a positive relationship with all stakeholders, engage in a transparent and responsible budget process that maximizes innovation and efficiency. foster a positive learning environment that results in a strong student skill and knowledge acquisition focused on student welfare.
Are we comfortable with that? Okay, what, and I have to mention, I was here a little early and I was reading this thing. I'm just gonna put it up here for a second. Because this actually sort of aligns with a lot of what you talk about in your goals. Because, you know, you're talking about positive relationship with all stakeholders, the transparent budget process. And sort of fostering the environment, and you have this really cool, in fact, I took a picture of this earlier and put it on Facebook, because I just think this is really cool. That you and your town council work together to create this. Now, I saw Sam Adlerstein on here, I have a feeling he may have had something to do with putting this together, so. But anyway, I just thought I'd put, it may be that one of your operational things as a board is to revisit this and see how this fits in to
Yeah, I
that
think that,
cooperation.
we had Jaden, pinpoint that at one point, one of his, he brought that up.
Because it talks about what you had talked about as a goal, which was, you know, having a better relationship with other town agencies and others in the community, so. That may be one of the things you want to do. So we have this worksheet. It looks like we may see it up there in a minute. But luckily I brought the analog version today, so I can work with you on here. So there's basically 4 questions that we want to answer for each of these goals. The first one is, what are our greatest hopes for the district in this area? So in other words, I sort of articulate as simply as possible what that goal means in actual results. You know, what's the deliverable? What are we willing to support to ensure the expectations can be met? What does that mean either for work that you've got to do as a board, something that you may have to commit to in terms of resources? There may be, depending on the goal, different approaches to that. You're going to work with your superintendent to what evidence of progress can we look at to really ascertain, are we doing what we expected to do? And then what do we need to do to gain community support? So, which in the first one might be kind of a challenge, except that you've got to really convince the public that you really do want them to be part of this collaborative effort that you're coming through. So I guess might as well start goal 1, question 1. As we talk about engaging in a positive relationship with all stakeholders, what does that mean to you? You know, if we throw together a couple bullet points, I think, well, I'm not sure you'll capture this.
I'll
stuff, and I'll
capture
just-
it. This is the chart that we had
Yeah.
discussed last time in the sequence. You notice the goals that were identified by the board on the left. And then the criteria for, you know, how you're going to evaluate or set their expectations, create conditions for success, what the accountability measures would be, and how you build public support across the right as discussed last time.
And I see you actually have some things that you started to populate.
Put a couple things in just for the board to kind of chew on with respect to system accountability.
Excellent. So, positive relationship with all stakeholders. You know, we could spend an evening just on that, so I think we have to sort of bullet point a few things to at least get this work started. I think you'd want to sort of identify who that might be and what does positive relationship mean?
I think that, one of the, for whether the stakeholders, I mean, that could be multitude of people, but I believe like a positive open communications where it's not, you can have,
Not adversarial.
not adversarial.
That's what I was thinking.
Yep, that's,
How about a more collaborative approach as opposed to an adversarial approach?
yes, I love it.
That's excellent.
You're on the same lines.
Collaborative versus
Adversarial.
adversarial.
Do you have anything?
And-
A minute to warm up, I think.
That was the same thing. I was on the same lines of what Sophia was, so.
And in terms of who, I know other elected officials, other agencies within the town. Yes,
I think even just within our
I would say
Board of
with
Ed
each other.
office,
Yeah,
each other.
I mean, would the community be a stakeholder, parents, students, staff?
Yeah,
Our bargaining units.
I'm just gonna write everybody.
I mean, audience, I mean, really, it's just, it's, you know,
And as you start to think about a communications plan or sort of start to plan this out, you may target some select groups and let's look at doing a couple things well rather than trying to do everything at once. So you might start to pinpoint a couple of key areas that you want to focus on. I could recommend a process for that later as part of what you're doing. In our lighthouse work, we developed a module on community engagement, and it's actually two parts. The first one, we actually go through 12 questions. And if it works, they're having trouble lately, but the little clickers, we go through 12 questions, we vote on them, get the results, and then we come back and talk about what a good communications plan looks like, and then how can you, and I'm not necessarily thinking you need to have a formal plan, but that you could, again, start to target in better detail, who's our target audience, what's our message, how are we going to get that message across to that audience? And done this work with a few districts in Columbia, came up with an incredible plan that I actually share around the country with my colleagues because it was really, really good from the work they did. So again, it's just a way of helping you focus your attention on something down the road. So that's always available to you.
yeah, that sounds kind of interesting to see what Columbia had.
So now in terms of, and maybe I'm wondering if we want to go to the accountability part before we talk about what you're willing to support, because that might identify some things that you have to be willing to do. So I don't know what, if you want to share some ideas and then we could try to get some feedback.
Sure. So, just to get everybody started, I added a few things here, and feel free to do whatever or draw out whatever. We do in education do things that we call exit tickets. They're very short, kind of quick responses that the students will give us. If I'm doing a social studies lesson, I might do an exit ticket on a couple things that their takeaways were from the lesson, just to give me a kind of idea as to whether the young adults had acquired or had gotten what I wanted them to out of the lesson. So for instance, just to jump to engage in transparent, responsible budget process that maximizes innovation and efficiency, we could have 3 exit ticket questions that we always ask everyone who has participated in a budget workshop or budget activity for the board, and do it on a 3x5 card even, or something as small as that, maybe a little bit bigger.
Like those survey monkey things or whatever. Come on.
Well, I prefer Google Forms. But the advantage to the cards are you can actually hand those out and ask people in the last 5 or 10 minutes to fill them out and hand them back to us.
Right.
And then we gather them and I have them compiled, not as efficient as a form, but then they don't have to go home and do it and find the link and that,
Can
et
we like
cetera.
QR code it?
Yeah, I could probably do a series of things. It just depends on people's, comfort with the tech of using the QR code and so on. But I could do a couple of different things to do. I can make that exit card with a QR code, like respond here or on the QR code. But this will give you an idea after each workshop of how transparent and innovative people felt this was. So a self-report from the people in the meetings or that have observed the meetings, right? And even before administrators themselves and the public as well. So that's one way of kind of assessing whether people felt that what we had done was transparent and engaging. And then we can kind of progress monitor that from budget workshop to budget workshop and meeting to meeting. And then, make adjustments as necessary. So it could be.
I like
this,
that.
I think
this,
that's an
this.
Because we
excellent
definitely
idea.
did, mix it up. This past time around we've kind of moved in different directions given COVID and given that, but I think that we've come so far. And I think that would be a good way of saying,
And I can share the
Yeah.
reflections on the dashboard, and then we
Right.
can kind of think about how then we want to pivot next time into whatever people felt, was strong, weak, or otherwise about it. So I can put those together for
I like
on the
that.
board.
I do too.
Then engaging in a positive relationship with all stakeholders. again, a short end of meeting survey link kind of for, people that when we do an activity or a meeting, how engaging do people feel like it was? And that might be, just like we have a standing review of goals, we would have at the bottom of the form, how did we do? In this meeting, how did we do? And have, encourage people at the end of a meeting, the chair can say, and a reminder to everyone at the bottom of the agenda is how did we do link? Give us some feedback on, how, engaging and positive you felt this, this outreach was, or this particular meeting was, or this community activity was, or whatever we're doing. And so you can get kind of an idea from the stakeholders, that are always engaging with us, how well they think it went for any given activity or meeting we had. And again, this is just throwing it against the wall. Fostering a positive learning environment resulting in strong student skills and knowledge and acquisition. There are certain standardized assessment results we could use to look at that. Also existing end of year surveys. I would just use those as two basic grouped categories. I would want to stay out of a specific one because we may not have data at the end of a year for that review until like August or something for certain assessments, but other assessments we would. So Dibbles, Dorfs, Days, maybe SEL stuff that we may be formulating, that type of thing, and stuff that you see on the data dashboard. We could use that as kind of a dipstick for where we feel like we ended at the end of a year, along with the end of year surveys and so on. And also an evaluation of sort of even admin goals, how the admin goals have been achieved or not, and that type of thing.
I was gonna say that, SEL learning kind of goes underneath that third goal.
Right.
So it kind of ties into that. So I know that you have stuff going on, and it's always changing. So I think maybe just having the updates, having those conversations, I think would be beneficial to that goal.
Yeah.
Whether we touch base on that and talk, just do a little update at a meeting or
Yeah,
however.
on
you wanna
SEL
approach it.
partners. Sure. Yeah, so and so SEL narrative reports kind of thing. Reports, in meetings. The superintendent. Sure. And so, these are the things I thought might be good ways of assessing kind of where we were at for these various goals.
Okay.
And then,
No, thank you for doing that, because it kind of sets us on a track
Yeah.
to just kind of.
So that being said, then I guess it goes back to the board. In order to do some of these things, are there things that the board has to take on as a responsibility in order to operationalize that? For instance, the first one, making sure that those questions are on the agendas. I know some boards will actually just have two questions on a little piece of paper they leave at the board table, because it doesn't hurt for you to talk to each other too. What went well at tonight's meeting? What could we do better? And just leave them out. And if somebody feels like writing something down, they do, and get it to the chair. And any kind of feedback like that can be really helpful. So part of your obligation would be to follow through on your end and make sure those get out and then collected, read, and then actually do something with that. It's collecting information and then sitting on it probably is worse than not asking the question to begin with. So that would be part of it. In terms of resource allocation or whatever, I think when you start to get down to the third one's probably where you're looking at potentially more budget implications or whatever, if there are some assessments or other, time on task for your administration is going to be, there's a cost to that, sort of not real dollars, but personnel dollars. So you'd have to make sure that, your superintendent has the resources that might be necessary to pull that stuff together. So a couple other things when we go, if we could bring up back up to that first one in the positive relationship. What are some of the other things that you probably have to be thinking about in terms of the board's responsibility doing this? I mean, you're going to get feedback and reports from administration, but when it comes to creating that positive environment, what are some of the things you board members probably you're gonna start to have to think about. Or identify things you're already doing that you may actually codify.
Well, to try to have a good, I'm sorry, to have a good communication amongst the caucuses. Because, coming in, we're divided by party. And I think it's nice to have a good communication despite that. But that takes effort. Yeah, we have to be intentional about that. And I think that's actually the first step.
No commitment amongst yourselves to work collaboratively.
Yes.
The last month, I've had more fun working with really collaborative boards. For some reason, it's just like people are really trying to work better together, or maybe it's just everybody's coming out of COVID, everybody's feeling better to be working, I'm seeing people again. But some of the most interesting work I've seen lately, and it's boards that have sometimes traditionally been kind of confrontational, but they've figured it out. One of them, probably, I've been there 30 times, actually it was my 30th visit there last week. They've been known for politics getting in the way of things, and it was like a love fest. Even the two that used to butt heads are like, we go out for beers after the meetings now. I mean, it was just awesome. So it can be done. It's a matter of making the commitment and making the children more important than the other stuff, which gets easier the more you start doing it, I think. Anything else in terms, not just, but it's, because this is really the board. How are you with like the other town agencies, town council and stuff? Is that,
I had another board one.
okay,
I was just, in terms of responsibility, within our committees, ensuring that, we post our agendas, we communicate our minutes in a timely fashion. Tony discusses sometimes about us, overlapping and having policy and communications, discuss certain things together and whatnot. So I think, the collaborative committee work and making sure that we get the information out to each other, make sure the board understands what we're doing. Obviously, we can't all go to every single meeting, so to make sure that we communicate it properly in our meetings, get our minutes in on time, have side discussions if we need to, and ask questions. I missed this meeting, but what happened in policy? Please let me know.
so collaboration within the committee structures, within the board's
Yeah,
operation.
taking the things we do separately and making sure that we bring them together so that we understand as a cohesive unit.
Cohesive unit, that's exactly what I thought.
Very good.
Did you get that all that well?
Cohesive.
That was it.
Outreach to other groups, because this is internal. But you're talking about all stakeholders. So again, and I'm not saying we have to articulate everything here now, because it might be better to make the commitment to continue that planning. So that we're not trying to, give you the operational plan tonight, but just pinpoint some ideas that you may want to flesh out later.
I think,
So-
representation at, town council meetings when we're discussing, Board of Education work, like, I accompanied Dr. Willett to discuss, for the vote for the bargaining units at the last meeting, making sure that we're present to answer questions, to give more information, to show that, we're there,
A supportive member.
right? That we want to be a part of the conversation.
And that you welcome their input
And feedback. Yeah.
and feedback as well, right? Because communication's either all one way or it's dialogue. One is really not communication, it's just spitting out data, and the other is really communicating.
Would, being that I haven't engaged in this process yet, but would, when we start doing the school rounds, would that be, that's,
I thought the school rounds would fall better on the bottom one.
I was just thinking, we consider our students and our staff stakeholders. we don't have a lot of, opportunities to interact with them, to make sure that we're present, to see what they're doing, to, ask questions, provide feedback, allow them to ask questions of us. I didn't know if that would be about engaging in a positive relationship directly with, people that we support.
I mean, it's not like we can't put it in two different spots too, you know what I mean?
Right.
So. it's-
That's what was going on in my mind, because it definitely fits in the first one, but it could fit in the third one too. And somehow that might even fit into the budget, transparent budget process as well.
This is true. Well, I think that, the transparent budget, I think having the budget meetings and, talking to, the budget rounds, I forgot how to call it. It's open to the public, board members just get to ask their questions first, though. Get the round robin, you can call it the round robin. I think it is important because, prior to, we would go to these round robins and a lot of board members would let community members ask their questions, and then the board members didn't really get their opportunity to ask questions. So we started off now where board members can ask the first questions. I mean, community members can certainly go in any room and talk and listen, but they just can't ask their questions yet. And then once that hour goes up, then community members can ask their questions, but they can certainly sit and listen to our questions. And to
So
our-
now, is this sort of like a focus group type of setup, or is it?
Well, we
just an open
just
house?
did the high school and we had different admins in one room, one from, TIS, TMS, Birch Grove, like all the different schools. We had Pete Stava in one, special education, the computer guy was on a screen,
They're all cost centers and departments,
Yeah.
and people could rotate around.
That's really neat.
In 10 to 15-minute blocks to each of these and ask any open-ended questions they want. So that happens, community members, there's a wave and a span of time where community members do it, there's a wave and a span of time where the board members do it. And the idea is complete transparency without any, no agendas, no trying to control any of the information, it's just ask your question, get your answers.
And I think we've gotten it to a really good point because like I said, it didn't seem. Board members didn't want to take time from community members asking their questions, but then we didn't get the answers we needed in order to craft said budget. So I think that this was an ideal way to do that.
Once people get used to the process, it'll go easier each time. I like that idea. That's really, you should write an article for the Cape Journal. I'm serious, and put in how you do that, and I bet people would really enjoy reading that.
No, I think we really crafted a great way of making sure that board members got it, community members got it, and our admin, I think we're more than happy to answer any questions that we had, and it's not confrontational or anything. They're not like up on a stage and they're getting like, 20 questions thrown at them. It's just a, in-person conversation, and I liked it. I think it works out very well.
It does, and I think we need to commend Dr. Willett for putting that together.
Yeah, managing all the technology.
Yeah, and managing the
as well.
technology and even introducing us to that idea,
Yeah.
so absolutely. Dr. Willett, you've got to get a lot
Yeah,
of credit
thank
for
you,
that,
Dr.
it's
Willett.
awesome.
We bounced around quite a bit, so I'm trying to figure out how to best make sure we hit every category, at least try to. If we go, I'm gonna bring us back up to the first one again.
Yeah, I mean, everything is kind of intertwined. so
It really
it's-
is, it really
And
is.
you get to a point where you open up conversation and then,
Yeah.
what box do you want to put it in?
Because we've got the evidence, we've got what you're willing to do, we've got your hopes. This last question, what do we need to do to gain community support for this work? I think by doing it is particularly in that first one, that's how you do it, is by implementing it.
Promoting engagement.
Yeah,
More engagement, see, communications chair.
yeah,
Yeah, but I think, like you said, the actions that we're saying that we want to take to do that are what promote engagement
Right.
and let our community know that we want them involved.
Right. So modeling the behavior basically is how you would put in that fourth column. Okay, so then we get down to the budget process. We've already talked about how you make it transparent. A lot of that's being done. Are there other things that, well, one, what is the expectation? You're doing it to have a, you want to maximize innovation efficiency, but what's the goal in all this? Is it to get the community, basically it's to get the budget passed, right? I mean, that ultimately is all of this confidence, all of this groundwork to have transparency and all that is so that people will support it.
Right, we
So-
need them we need them to hear and see the information and what goes into it and where our decision making is coming into play.
But I think that you hit on something too, because I think a lot of times, you know, not to get into craziness, but like misinformation will get out there and not the whole reality of the situation. And a lot of times the reality of the situation is not exactly the one-liner that would get social media going.
Right.
Because that's not technically really what's happening. So I feel like with the communication piece, I think, and the transparency and having that budget process, you know, Dr. Willett has posted our questions for the community and, you know, it's been 120 pages of answers. I mean, to his credit, he has, I mean, people think that he can just snap his fingers and get answers, but in order to get the answers and to provide the correct information, it does take time. And so, you know, to have that as a piece of the budget process, which is now coming up again, I think that is an important factor of what we do to try to make it transparent. But I think people have to be willing to review and listen and hear full information.
But that's a good point. It's something that we already do. We take in public questions and provide answers during the process, make that information public.
I mean, like I said, even just having the admins of the round robin, I feel like is a very open process.
Yep.
So that questions can be answered. I mean, we even tried working on how to provide a one pager or, you know, information to the town council so that they can have an understanding. So I mean, we have tried to work through of how to be transparent and open and say, okay, well, this is what you may think, but this is what's happening and this is why. And I think those are the key pieces in order to get the community to understand.
And Dr. Willett puts together, you know, our budget book and
Yep.
all of that material is
Mhm.
available online
Yep.
and in my, you know, for communications, we do a meeting summary after every meeting on Facebook. And there's always a link to the monthly financial report and all the budget resources and documents. So that goes out twice a month as well. Anybody can click into that, look at where we are in time and also look at, you know, past.
And that
years.
is new, that we have started that, and I do think it helps people understand.
Puts
that
it in a
things
new
happen.
place.
Yeah.
People can read it. They can read a quick summary, but they can also click into it and look at all the documents that we're looking at.
So I guess what I'm trying to think about is, because this is stuff you do now, and
Right.
it's foolish to have a goal if we already are doing everything we need to do, so.
But I feel like we still are trying to trudge through it
Mhm.
to ensure that that is a goal in mind, that what can we do to make it better? you
Yeah,
know?
to meet the goal, I think that's the point. We want to
Right.
ensure we are meeting that goal for our community and our constituents. So I think that goes back to the communication piece about how did we do? I love that idea. Because we don't know unless it blows up, really. That's when
That's
you
the only time
find
we get
out.
the emails.
Yeah, so the idea is to try to avoid those pitfalls.
And,
I guess
and
it's trying to get the engagement prior to.
Yes. So
Which is
we-
engagement period. We can provide all the information that we can, but we still have to,
you need the feedback, and then you have
Yeah,
to
we
use
just-
that somehow.
we still need to get buy-in in the community, right? Not buy-in necessarily on the budget, but buy-in on reading the material that we're providing or watching the video or coming to the round robin at
Yes.
the high school. I think that's the piece that we're still working on, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
to get the
sometimes it's like a
engagement.
vacuum.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a vacuum.
It's like a
sometimes.
fishbowl,
Yeah.
but you know.
I have a question. Do we have, I know this isn't my time, but do we have like a social media person here or it like that communication?
She's doing the communication piece of writing up.
We have so we have an official superintendent page on Facebook, so we're starting to utilize that
Okay.
in the communications committee.
As the resident young person here, I think that we should try and utilize social media more, just because not only is it a great way to get things out, a great way to summarize things easily, people will look at it, they can skim through it, highlight words, make it fun, pop out. And also, it's a really good way to just, like, see how people feel about things, like 2 posts on Instagram or Facebook, one gets 100, one gets 40. So you can kind of see without people telling you what's more popular and what's less popular. So that's a good idea to consider. I don't know.
Definitely all for beefing that up, Audrey. Right, Dr. Willett?
We do actually have an Instagram page, but it's just.
We actually have an Instagram.
We do, but not, we don't really populate it the way we populate Facebook. Because
I think
Facebook's just
Facebook
the
is
most,
more like the.
it's generally the most efficient for
Yeah.
population of.
Are you really the older crowd? Now, I'm sorry, I had to pipe in with that.
Parent
one.
guardians
Does
usually
that,
do
does that
this.
qualify us now as, thank you, thank you.
No.
You meant just, oh,
No way.
I made me feel old.
Never, never. But, I think she makes a good point, though, and I do think that even the communications for a long time, our committee. They'd never really got to meet before, you know what I mean, so I think. She's kind of ran with it and, really started to open up those doors on social media and getting information out, because sometimes. Not everybody clicks on the digital backpack,
I'm trying.
What you might want to do as a communications committee is review these goals as a committee and just see how your work could align to the goals. It's not a bad idea to have all your subcommittees look at this and figure out how they could fit in the blanks, but particularly because so much of this is related to communication that it might be a good exercise for your committee to do that.
That's great.
we'll take that on.
Yeah, well, and that committee is me and Sophia. There's a relative, we're present right now, and we'd be happy to discuss it again.
Happy to that, meetings too.
Absolutely.
I think we've answered the first 2 pretty well. The third one is where we really, and some of it, for instance, the accountability part really is up to the superintendent to come back and say, here's some measurements we can give you that will be helpful. You may, Vernon, about 3 years ago, they decided to build a dashboard. And so the superintendent worked with the board. He says, I want no more than 10 indicators that the board collectively agreed we would want to see measured, and it was a collaborative effort. So well, like graduation rates, well, the superintendent figured out, well, we can do it this way, or reading proficiency. Well, there's a test but collaboratively, they built these 10 indicators that they would look at monthly, or it would be live on the web, so that, you didn't have to necessarily take an agenda time out of a board meeting. But then again, your board meeting really should represent the most important work of the district. And if you've determined that these 5 or 10 things are the indicators of success, then I think it's almost important to at least look at them every meeting, not necessarily a half-hour presentation, but just as a reminder, here's where we were last month, here's where we are, or quarterly, depending on, if it's some data that you're only looking at quarterly, which also could then be shared with social media, and it could be out there on your website, et cetera, static sites, but also, on social media.
Did you get all that?
I did roughly, yes.
Roughly.
Yeah, I did the 5 indicators. I narrowed
There you
it to
go.
5.
I think that's better.
But.
I didn't even see you typing, so that was pretty good.
Yeah. Awesome.
I'm typing for you. I got you.
Very,
It's got a chip in his head that just types automatically.
yeah.
They probably just hear my voice. It's probably,
You need notes later, I will share. Anytime.
So then, what was the last column?
What do you need to gain community support? Because while you're putting the emphasis on student success, and just, this is Nick Caruso talking, but I'd love to see the student performance one be goal number 1.
And just by the way, you can access this exact document through either the sequence document that is out there or the board dashboard. So if you can't see it all on the screen, if you click into it now, you can see the whole thing, size it the way you want.
Then my whole Zoom thing goes.
Yeah, well, yeah.
So anyway, like I said, I love to see the student goal first always, but
No, and that,
There-
I absolutely, but I'm completely fine with that, because what ends up happening is the goals end up going on our agenda, on a
Correct.
little,
Yes.
you know, so they just kind of line up. We had 4 goals last time, and I felt like for doing COVID times, we did a pretty good job. But we never really revisited here.
well, that
So
was
that's the
another
problem.
thing that I think you want to build into your calendar now. When do we want to look at these? Maybe every 3 months, every 6 months, and again, it doesn't warrant necessarily a whole agenda item, but.
With the subcommittees as well, to review these goals, to know how are they fitting into these goals. And I think that's kind of important, because when we have our committee and liaison reports for subcommittees, they can certainly bring that piece of the puzzle to the boardroom. Dr. Willis very good about tracking stuff down and, you know, coming up with whatever else that we might need, so he can also bring up something if we don't realize, and points of information. So it doesn't even have to necessarily be an agenda item that could take a long time to discuss. I mean, we can just say, okay, look at, this is another student achievements. Actually, I just wanted to point out the turkeys in the back room,
They're wonderful.
because they are fantastic and I absolutely love them. And this board that I finally got in this room makes me so happy during meetings. And so look at the student achievement that we have for our artwork from our 3rd graders, and this is our honors class. I mean, I think those are the things that we need to tie into what we're doing.
Absolutely.
The acknowledgements, yes, we started adding in acknowledgements to our agenda so that we can try to do student achievements for different things. We had DECA come, we've had, I mean, it's just whatever, you know, sports teams, all different kinds. And we didn't have acknowledgements at this time, but she had a wonderful science project called the BuzzBox. The
The Breathe Better Buzz Box.
Breathe
Actually.
Better BuzzBox. So she came to our board meeting prior, and this was during COVID time, so that was actually remote. But I mean, I do think, you know, as chair, I have really tried to have that connection with the community, with, you know, students, and try to really bring that into it, because that's why we're here. Like, I really feel like that gets lost a lot of times when people want to start, you know, was that first thing, you know, positive communication for collaboration versus adversarial. That's key, because we have to all know that we are here for students, because that's why we're there.
Absolutely, and that's the message you want everybody else to hear.
Yep.
In terms of that 3rd goal, fostering a positive learning environment, blah, 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 good words. What does that really mean? Does that mean, is your focus then on the, well, teaching and learning? Is it, and that could be more than just math curriculum, it could be social, emotional, it could be also, could be all of those things. But to distill down that goal into a quick bullet of what does that mean?
Well, I think that with the focus on the student welfare, which is why I thought the SEL would kind of go into this category. But I mean, we have talked about whether it's the going into the schools to visit what the programs on site and see what they're doing for our students. I think that's an important key. I think there's a lot of times for even the curriculum committee can talk about what is happening and what's new. So I think the board goal for that is going to be very important. We do try to have our administrators come and discuss each program. So, you know, we had the science guy not that long ago, right? I'm sorry, my whole October is just like, so I'm like in a time warp. So, you know, I feel like we just had him not that long ago. I know we had math during the summer at some point. Barbara Daly Burns probably is on to come at some point for the ELA. But we try to have them come show us information. The math teacher had a link that you can actually go on and view student, you know, test scores and how they, especially during COVID, it was, everything kind of dropped in science. I mean, everything just dropped. And so then it's like, how do you get out and get things to where they should be? I know like we have the summer program. I mean, it's not that we don't try to, but there's a lot of different avenues that we try to pinpoint. So,
But one of the things that you're willing to contribute, besides, I see there's some things about actual supporting programs, but it's also putting in your time to review this stuff, because that's a commitment you have to make. You know, we're gonna put it on our agendas. We are going to take extra time in our meetings, but that's because it's important.
yeah, no, and I think that, Dr. Willett, you also added onto the dashboard, there was a link to, it was something with, test scores. And I'm trying to rack my brain what it was, but you had posted something on the dashboard that you can click into it,
Mhm.
and you can see what was it to?
The portal. You talking about
Yeah, the
portal?
portal, yeah. the
It had an
portal.
SBAC score.
SBAC, yeah,
It
yes,
it had all of that.
So that was kind of new, and it's on the town, is the town talent, like I said, my last month has been a little crazy, and I can't, if I haven't done it recently, it kind of just went out of my mind.
Yeah.
But he has, a link that you can actually view the scores.
Yep, it's on every newsletter at the bottom. There's a link for the data portal, and then it's
Yeah, the
also on the
data-
superintendent's
that's right.
page. So the data portal has, updated data as it is available in each of these areas. English language arts, math, science, social emotional welfare, SATs, standardized THS profiles, matriculation profiles, graduation profiles, pandemic performance information, and even transportation.
I hope you folks recognize what an asset this is, because a lot of boards talk about this. This is the first time I'm actually seeing somebody actually did it.
Yes.
This is really, really cutting
And
edge.
then what's good about it is it's over time too, so, it's up, you see that it's updated, say, up to September, say, in math here. But you can also scroll back into the previous reports to see where it was at different points in time. And it has a good mix of standardized data information from, say, math fluency data, in ELA, it's Dibbles and other very reputable, yeah, reputable data sets, reputable assessments, that type of thing. So it's it's a useful tool for us.
So, I mean, it's not like we aren't on the path of creating these links and information out to be transparent, so information is out there. It's whether or not people take it upon themselves to actually learn about it and know that it's there to see.
But in terms of you as a board, because this is how you're going to look at these goals, I think it's important to find the place for the data in your decision. And again, you're doing this, I'm sure, but how do we take this information that is rich and should influence the decisions you make, and how do we incorporate that into our meeting time, so that we are making informed decisions based on real information versus feels good? Or I hear a lot of complaints about this, so we're going to react by making a decision versus the data shows that in this direction, we're doing better. Here's a little deficit. We need something to fix that. How do we do that? So I guess in my mind, that's how the goal operationalizes, or the board operationalizes this goal, is by making the commitment to utilize this stuff appropriately. If that makes sense. Because all the data in the world, the best goals in the world, any of this stuff, if you're not revisiting it and using it to help make better decisions, then you really don't need to do that.
Yeah.
Like an example of that, where the rubber hits the road, is probably, are probably things like at budget time, if we're interested in social emotional welfare, you know, the number of counselors, the number of psychologists we have, that type of thing. These are things that play into that. Whether we have adequate programming, you know, like Skills for Adolescents, and do we still have things like the rope program? How do we fund it? How do we support it? You know, that type of thing is important.
Is there any way still, are we beyond wordsmithing these goals at all? Just wish that there was
Well, I work
something.
for you guys. So.
I just, in this particular one, I just wish there was something that was, you know, foster a positive learning environment, like foster a positive. You know, something about like when we talk about like, you know, the whole child, the whole student,
Holistic.
you know, yeah, I mean, this to me, when you just read it, it looks just like we're focusing on academics.
But then I saw the student welfare, and I
I do
think
see
when
the
I,
welfare
when I see
piece.
student welfare piece,
Yeah.
that's what makes me think the whole child
Yeah.
of, you know, the emotional
It's a
side.
Strong
the
student
stuff.
skill and knowledge acquisition, focused on student welfare. So it's still that I'm just saying how I read it. I just wish there was just one word in there
Well,
that
and
just,
the other thing is skill, you know, the hard part about goals is it is difficult to come to something that's concise, but also inclusive. And
I know
what
where
you,
he's gonna go with this conversation. Let me just try this. Let me just try this wall before you go.
I'm just.
With the
wondering-
skill, it's the strong student skill, and he's gonna say, you know, having the skill of being able to, the whole conversation we had this morning. Of progressing through and doing what they need to, blah, 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 right?
the skills of emotional regulation are also part of skill acquisition. So true, you know, yes, and then
See?
Ashley knows me. pretty well with this. But yes, that is exactly, I was gonna say that as Yale, the Yale ruler program does talk about this as skills.
As a skill.
As
the
a skill, that
emotional
these kinds
is
of
a
emotional
skill.
regulation skills are important to overall welfare of the child. It includes that, social emotional ability, regulation, welfare, that type of thing. But yeah, of course, you know.
And the word environment is a holistic word too, I think. But I'd also say that, you know, here's the place, what are our actual aspirations? It's not just it's academics, but it's not just academics. And I think that's, you know, if there's a way of maybe in that just enunciating that. Just so that you make that point, you know, we want successful students, but success doesn't just mean test scores.
I mean, you don't want a student that's just successful in academics. And yet having such a hard time with other pieces, you know, so that's what I think needs to level out. And so that we ensure for the whole child.
I also think in order for a child to be successful academically, they have to, you know, feel a certain way. They have to.
That's
Positive.
required.
And you can't be successful unless you're driven to a certain level, which means you have to be motivated and you have to be, you know, all of those things that we know is good learning, good teaching.
Right.
You have to motivate the kids.
So my question to you then,
Yeah, what would you, I know.
what
If
would
I
your
could-
recommendation be?
Just feel like we could insert one word and.
How about
just not-
holistic before positive?
Oh, holistic, that's nice. Do you like, are you okay with the holistic? Holistic, positive. I like that. We're on top of it. You're on fire,
Holistic
girl.
and positive. All right, when we add the add, when we add the and.
Yes.
Foster a holistic and positive learning environment that results in strong. Yeah, yeah.
Is that better? Does
think
that
so.
fit? Like, does it feel better? Does it flow better?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm okay with that.
Sorry, I'm at a loss for a word. I'm gonna go with help. Thank you, Sophia, for helping me in my moment.
I like holistic. I think holistic is a good one. I don't know what else you would use that wouldn't be. Like you said, we have the environmental, we have student welfare. I like that.
What do you think?
We don't want to, I like the word, so.
You like it?
Yeah.
See, you got cable fruit.
There, it's keeping it.
Cable
How do you feel
fruit.
about it, Audrey?
I'm great about it.
When you read that, do you feel like we care
I feel
more
like
about
I'm
than
in
just your,
positive learning right now. That's also holistic.
okay? We care more than just about your academic
Yeah.
scores.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, willing to support, I think we've talked about. Well, part of it, well, you've got a whole list of them actually so far, in terms of resources and stuff. I think it's also your focus as a board on these things. That's a commitment you have to make, that we're gonna make sure we have that attention and that we'll be reviewing periodically what you have in there. So last part, I guess, that we want to sort of fill in is what do you need to gain community support? For those people who maybe don't think of a school district first as a place of education, but a place that spends tax dollars. How do you get them to buy into the idea that we're really focused on children and that's our job?
I think you just asked a $1 billion question. Do you have any
I
solutions?
mean, and I think that's a lot of our struggle is.
Yeah.
In town,
Figure that out, write a book and retire.
There you go.
right?
Like, no, I mean, I'm being dead serious. I
And I
would
think-
love to hear.
I think part of, I mean, like we said, like. Going to, when education topics are on the town council agenda, going, representing the Board of Education, providing feedback, listening to feedback, answering questions. Like, I think that's a part of that, If the town council is discussing something that has to do with education and how that fits into their job, right, and their role for the community, to be there and be involved in that
Do you
conversation.
have any, like a joint committee with the council on education?
We don't, we have joint meetings at times, but it's not. a
So
joint-
there's-
Budget, so like we created that. COVID relief fund, so that was a joint endeavor that we were able to put funds in there that we can use toward COVID expenses, because as you know, that took a toll on a lot of budgets. And so this way we had asked them to set aside funds that we still end up, it's still our funds, but like put it into the COVID relief funds in order to just help pay for, the end of the year school services, because we had a lot of students fall behind. So I mean, it's not that it's a joint committee, but I mean, we do try to.
Yeah, by statute, ordinance, and individual efforts, the board does interact with council on a variety of occasions throughout the year. So a CRF would be one example. Coronavirus relief fund was a collaboration between the two entities. But also during budget season, there are meetings where the town council will recommend non-educational efficiencies. And the board, hears those and they have a conversation about them, et cetera.
Mhm. But I guess I'm thinking in terms of the academics, do you have opportunities to, when it's not budget and it's not like focused on, okay, because that's often that adversarial relationship, because they have a role to play just like you do, and they don't necessarily mesh well. But do you take it offline at a different time of year when we can just talk? We want to talk to you about what we're doing for holistically for children, et cetera, et cetera. That would also help fix goal 1 too. Just a thought, how do we incorporate communication in a way to support our academic process? That communication workshop that I mentioned focuses, it was actually developed through Lighthouse, which is all about student achievement. And so all the questions aren't just, do you talk to businesses in your community, but do you talk to your businesses about teaching and learning? How do you involve other organizations in town in terms of communicating about what our academic needs are, or what their academic needs might be from us? So the conversation is not just focused on, money or volunteerism or whatever you might be looking for from the community, but it's also, how do you help us have a better curriculum? How do you help us have better teaching and learning? What other things can we do in our schools that will focus on achievement but benefit the community? So that's, again, part of that sort of next step of how do we make decisions that will help promote this, besides just voting on money stuff.
I just put some things in that I know what we're doing.
Yeah.
But also things we want to continue to resource and make available.
I like that.
got some good stuff down there.
I think we're doing pretty good for being light on members.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Trying.
We're all right.
We are trying.
yeah. I'm not sure what else I can suggest. I think at this point, you're probably all a little beat up anyway, because it's getting later. Walt, are we missing anything that you want to see on there?
No, no, I'm just summarizing and, kind of, rounding this out. I think that, really between the goals and, the process you've gone through as a board and this table, I think we're ready to add them to our agendas and to start to operationalize, what we've discussed in the last couple of meetings over the last 2 months. And you got a good record of the whole sequence of it as well. So, I would suggest we're ready to go in terms of putting that on the agenda and starting to, use this as a actual living document. That we then, operate from and revisit. It is on the dashboard now, and I think we can, make it a regular part of our process.
Perfect. Okay.
Great.
Thank you so much, Nick.
You're welcome.
I think it's very helpful to have someone kind of walk us through everything.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And then, you always get to come see our meeting.
That's right.
Thanks for being.
Well, this is the fun kind of work. If somebody says we have a fire we need help putting out, please come, those are challenges. This is fun.
And we can put those right in Walt's office for artwork.
Yeah. I don't know if you can read my handwriting or if you want me to type them up in case you need them for,
Whatever you want to do, I'm fine if I can have, this would be a task Jen would.
Oh, poor Jen. Why did I give it to her? Everything goes to Jen. Poor Jen. There's so many. But once again, thank you so much for your time. I do have interest in that Columbia plan, so at some point, if you send that over, I think that would be an interesting read for me. That would be great. And I can send you an email too, Jim.
Yeah, if you send it to me, Nick, I could post it to the dashboard.
I can do that tomorrow.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, let's go ahead and, because those were our two really big topics for today. So I feel good. So let's go ahead and go through the monthly financials. Dr. Willett?
Going back to the agenda. Here. So just there.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next agenda item, and thank you again, Nick.
You're welcome.
The next agenda item is the monthly financial report. So as you know, at the first board meeting of every month, we go over a financial report of the district's expenses on the one-page financial sheet. I'm just kind of skip over here to the one pager here. I'll give you a quick narrative on it. All right, so a couple noteworthy pieces to the October 31st report. As you can see from the business manager, we have a budget balance of 1.2 million. It's about 3.07% of the board's current budget. This is pretty typical right now, this time of year. These encumbrances balances will continue to change, and that'll be, that'll go down over the span of the year. We do have a couple of highlights here. Here's no crazy. Salaries, code 110 is under budget by 291. Obviously, as people are paid, that will, run down. Substitute available balance is 259, same thing, under budget, but that's really because we're still, moving through that. Overtime, we can't really encumber these, it's under budget by 148. So, we're down 17 from last month on overtime, which can be a good thing, means we're hitting our stride. We're not having to cover for so many staff positions being open. So it's a good sign, but again, it's healthy and we'll be diminishing that as the year goes on. Stipends, same thing, pay to play funds. We're in a constant process of collecting those. Sometimes people don't always get them in right away for various reasons. There's also free and reduced processes that we go through for people that need it. So you'll notice that as the year goes on, that will get balanced out, but that is always a factor on line 150. Insurance, severance, employee benefits, the code 190, 200, 210, collectively, they're 89 under budget. There's no payouts for pensions or severances at this time, so that's a positive thing. We might see that as we get closer to the end of the year. Some people might retire, there might be severances for a variety of reasons. But right now that's 89 under. Newly hired employees, retired employees, the FICA, the Med, Social Security, that's code 220. We've not really had any real retirements, and you can expect that that'll kind of shift as time goes on. We currently are 71 under budget. Retirement, course reimbursement, unemployment, codes 240, 250, 260 are all collectively under budget. Not all course reimbursements have been filed and no unemployment claims have been filed, so 78K is under budget. You do see though, and you did see in some cases how when we talked about in budget documents, when people do change their lanes, and they have take courses and then they get a certificate, it can change, make a very large change in that course reimbursement compensation line. So that's that's something we'll see as the year goes on and people complete their coursework at the end of semesters. Benefits, consultants, workers' comp, 270, 310 are under budget by 58. Legal, audit, tech, 340, 350 are collectively under budget 155. All repair, maintenance, custodial expenses, technical expenses, code 420, 430. They continue to get drawn down on. Currently, they're under budget by 188, but of course, don't count on that to stay that way. Maintenance, custodial expenses are cyclical. They're not usually going to be fully incurred until we get to the end. Transportation is over 510, code 510 by 238. Bus routes and those are always being adjusted. The overages are basically due to special services transports. We do get, as you know, in February and May, we do get excess cost payments back. So it's just going to be negative as we go through the year until some of that balances out. Same thing with tuitions, over by what looks big by 519, but again, we do get the excess cost reimbursements. That's usually when it balances out. It is trending higher than normal, or whatever was normal prior to COVID. COVID has resulted in more identifications and more significant things that need to be addressed, and so we're seeing that kind of blip. We also unfortunately had our threshold number raised, which means that we are responsible for more of the tuitions than we were in the past. And that's an unfortunate development for us. Obviously, the services are necessary and fortunate that we have it. But just as a note, when that happens and when that threshold shifts, that usually means that now we are responsible for more of the full tuitions under the threshold. We don't get a percentage reimbursement on as many. So that means we will incur a higher cost out of our operating budget. And that's a factor of something that happened very recently. Energy, as you know, they're transferred to the UISF account. It's the Utility Internal Service Fund. Textbooks, 640, under budget by 72. That's definitely not fully expended. And you'll see that get gone down on as we go through the year and textbooks are decided upon. Instructional supplies, same thing, 600, 610, 690, 730, collectively under budget, but don't count on that staying that way. Under by 182, down 47 from last month. That'll continue to get drawn down on this. That's about it for a summary.
No, thank you for going in depth on a couple of those, because you kind of answered my questions before I could even ask them. So thank you for that. Any other member have any questions?
No questions.
Okay, thank you for that, and we can move on to the next.
All right, so the next item is I4, which is the monthly, annually, we approve the meetings for the coming year. So you can see that in this summary, there's January 11th, first meeting of 2023, all the way through the school's winter break, December 2023. And you'll notice that we do move certain meetings. So again, same thing as Thanksgiving this year, that one's moved to November 29th. The other one is moved back to December 20 because the winter break and other things impact those. So you can see that this is generally read twice. It's our first read. This is under superintendents now. Next time it could be under action. Obviously we can't put it under action.
I was gonna say, obviously first read because we don't have a quorum in order to vote. So thank you. Everyone can read that.
Perfect.
Okay, let's just keep going.
Next item, ELL FTE. What I want to do, basically, when I do have to make an adjustment to our FTEs, I try to make sure that I'll get that in front of the board. Some of these kinds of adjustments, anything that I bring to the board in this manner and form will be required. So we do have to make adjustments based on IEPs, orders, PPTs, etc. We also have to make adjustments when we are required by the state of Connecticut to provide services or level of services and not having the appropriate staff would prevent us from doing so. So in this case, ELL learners have increased exponentially in this district. Over the last 12 to 18 months, we've had a massive increase. And so right now, what I needed to do is take a position that was at a 0.5 and make it a 0.75. So it's an increase of $10,090 for fiscal year 23. This year, it would be an overall increase every year of 12,000 if we calculate this way.
Okay.
So, does this, employee cover all the school travel to each school learners? And when you say increase exponentially, is that first through the high school or is it?
It's throughout the whole
It
district.
is, okay.
Yeah,
It's not pocketed in the area.
no.
Okay.
No, and it's just been a trend we've been noticing that has been consistent, the consistent trend for us.
When we have somebody currently in this position and we're
Yeah.
just helping them
Okay.
to a 0.75.
Yeah. We basically, we are up by 22. We have 52 right now.
Wow.
And that 22 was just a
Added
wave
on,
that came in
yeah.
recently.
Okay.
And this person is willing to take on said position?
Oh, yeah, they're in it now and increased it to point, it should be increased to 0.75 rather than from, but it is 2.
Yeah,
so
that's what I was saying.
uh,
Okay. Well, thank you for the update.
Yes.
I think that's important to know and for, minutes to reflect anything in terms of any changes because, 50, 52 and 22, that's a lot.
It is.
That's a whole classroom.
Yeah.
And they're all spread out, so. Okay. Thank you very much. Let's move on to the secretary report. You have the newest one that we had added to,
Yes, I just need,
because I can tell you that I know Sophia read it, I know you read it.
Yep.
Dana, did you get a chance to read through? She gives thumbs up. So I don't think there's anything that we really need to necessarily discuss. If you want to just kind of put it on screen though, so that if anybody's watching, they could kind of see it. That way it's out there, I guess to say.
Yes, so right now.
I know there's so many, there's probably so many.
This is the draft
final?
report. Yep, and at this point,
And you
unless
added,
this was from our secretary, Jacob Murray. This would be a report to the town council. Each of you has gotten an opportunity here through this board meeting to look at this, that dashboard. I think people have provided their feedback and information on it. And so at this point, we could clean it up a little if there's any cleaning needed from a grammatical spelling point of view. But it looks like you've all had an opportunity to do what you wanted to do with it. So if you're okay with it,
we will,
and informally, we can just say we're ready to go. And Mr. Murray would then
bring it to the town.
bring it to the council, we'd reach out, get this on an agenda for him to come in and give a report.
No, I'm fine with that. We're not voting on anything, so. Perfect, this is good. Okay, so thank you very much, so we can.
Ashley, I had my hand up. I don't know if you saw, sorry. I just, really quick, if you don't mind, I don't know if his most updated, draft has anything with Birch Grove and us closing Birch Grove out, but I'm gonna go ahead and craft something and send it so we can include that into the secretary's report, if that's okay with you.
You can send that to me, Jen, and Jacob. We'll make sure.
Perfect.
to-
Okay,
that's it.
perfect, will do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So with the addition of that, we can move forward and that can be provided into the town council meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, so committee and liaison reports, we obviously are missing quite a few people, but do you ladies have anything that you guys would like to report on? I mean, you could do mental health, but you just had that.
Yes. Very important.
Okay, just cut.
Well, I can do communications because we
Okay.
didn't cover that last time. So really quickly, we discussed options for communications, school and community resources for social and emotional health supports. So this may include periodically delving into topics that affect the daily lives of students and families. An optional first topic could be bullying, and we could work on communications like a community workshop. A one-pager of resources our school system provides for bullying reporting, helpful tips for parents at home for discussing bullying with their children, and constructing a letter from our superintendent to the Attorney General regarding aiding school systems with handling cyberbullying on social media. So it was a great discussion, and I think we'll definitely keep on those topics. I can give you a small PTO update.
Sure.
The Lyman Pie and Castle fundraiser pickup is tomorrow, 11:10 at Birch Grove from 3:45 to 6:30. We wrapped up the book fair at TIS. Art to Remember forms, if they haven't gone out already, they will be going home to the Birch Grove and TIS community, so that the orders can be in time for Christmas or holidays, I'm sorry. And for Husty Fest, has been scheduled again for December 3rd from 10 to 1. That will coincide with the Birch Grove Book Fair. Looks like they've got some fun stuff there planned, like food trucks, and that's where they decorate, ceramics on the spot. And then they get fired in the kiln again. Those will be, I believe, in time for holiday gifts. And then for boosters, they had at 10:19, they did one, they did the kitchen closed fundraiser at Wellington Pizza. November is supposed to be at Camille's this month. I don't have the date yet, and December's at the spot. And then the project graduation bottle and can drive, I wanted to make sure that I reminded everyone was 11:19 from 9 to 1 at the high school.
Got a lot going on.
The mental health task force discussed the survey. The responses are in, and I believe that they're working on reporting that out in a community event, and they're working on where to have that and the dates on that. And they discussed the mentoring, programs that have been, been discussed over the last few months. And also the DEI task force recommendation to the town council.
What is the DEI? I'm sorry, can I ask? I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It is the diversity, equality, and inclusion task force.
All right, thank you.
Equity or?
Thank you.
You're in the right, John.
It might be
I
equity.
think you're in the right.
Yeah,
zone.
equity and inclusion. I'm sorry, I'm not usually the one who gives, I don't usually give the report out on mental health. I'm fine to do it. I didn't write anything down. So.
I'm asking questions anyway. I came out without,
Okay. Yeah.
Well,
I
thank
could
you
shut my
very
mouth
much.
before it came out of it.
Did you have anything?
No,
Because
Because
policy
policy
did
didn't
not
meet.
meet.
that's right. Policy didn't.
Okay,
Oh, and negotiations, and
Oh,
we are,
negotiations.
we have just begun, negotiations with our school nurses, so that is underway.
okay, so that is all for the committee. Chairperson's report. I just wanted to say thank you to Sophia and Jacob for running the 2 meetings while I was dealing with a family emergency. I thank you guys a lot for that, and Dr. Willock for keeping me posted with everything. It is helpful because I may not be able to be here for the actual meeting, but I was able to still do all the stuff I have to behind the scenes and get things done. And thinking about this time that we're in is now November with the turkeys on the back. So I just want to make sure that all families enjoy their Thanksgiving with family. And like I said, I love these turkeys in the back. It's so colorful. It's so nice. So that's about
We'll
it.
recognize them next time.
I know. I just absolutely love the turkeys. I think it's the cutest thing with all the colors. That's exactly what I had envisioned. So
Well, and I think the blurb said, right, it's about, they were inspired by a local farm that has a Beyond Turkey. So it was obviously something that the students had fun with, in class.
Workshops on turkeys.
there's, didn't they used to have a turkey come into, maybe it was the preschool.
Workshops and, the male's the gobbler, in case you want to know. Apparently. Did not know that.
I want to
Turkeys can
say,
fly up to 50 miles an hour, another little turkey, although they fly poorly, but they fly fast. Sorry.
Hands-on activities are just so great for our kids, and I love seeing their creativity, and,
Absolutely.
Mrs. Arner does a great job, with those things, and, the butterfly work, area outside and everything, so it's no surprise that this was her classroom, so it's fantastic. I hope the kids had a great day getting to do some art and something
I
fun.
absolutely love it. Like these turkey gobblers are just like looking at me, with little eyeballs. I just love it. I think it's cute.
We used to do those things, right, Audrey? Probably.
Okay, well, seeing that we do not have a quorum, so we will jump over to the jump over board action. So public participation, anyone in the room or online, you will have a 2-minute limit. If you could please list your name and your address for the record. And at this point, the comments must be limited to items on the agenda. And like I said, if you are online, please raise your hand. If not, you can come and speak to the owl. Go ahead.
It's in regards to what you guys were just discussing, only because you were
If
talking
you
about.
could, please start with your name and
Yeah,
address.
that would be helpful. When 31 Servants Road in town. But you guys were talking about the communication with the community. And one of the things my teachers, my son is in 6th grade. He has Mrs. Hope for homeroom and the Gold Team. And they have a Gold Team website. And when we went to open house, she actually gave us the links. All of us were emailed as parents, were emailed the links to the Gold Team's website. So we now have access to whatever our kids were doing that day. If they were home absent, we can look at what the lesson was supposed to be for whatever classes they missed. We can bring up the YouTube video for whatever, if we don't know how to teach the lesson for math. If we don't know how to, what the specifics were for social studies, we can bring up all of those things and even look up the book online so that they can do their LA work. Because my son's missed a class or two, I'm just gonna say, once or twice he may or may not have missed one. So I've had to do those things, but it makes the world of difference being able to interact with that and be able to go back and forth and not have to worry about, is this what he was supposed to do? He's missing out on so much. He's not, because he's got it all while he's at home. And when he's feeling better, he's capable of doing said work. And it's also a way of them communicating with us on the homeroom page. Because right there on the homerooms, on the Gold Team's website, there's a front page where she will post messages on Mrs. Hope's front page. So, if there's any messages to the parents, we can see all of that. So I'm just saying, as community.
You. Katie had her hand up.
Hi, Katie Marie, 8 Lisa Lane. I'm actually here as the town council liaison to the Board of Ed for the month of November. And I did just want to let the board know, I know it's on your agenda, are the minutes from the town council's October 25th meeting. But I did just want to point out that at our October 25th meeting, we set a public hearing for November 22nd. And we actually have a bunch of public hearings that day, but one of them is regarding the allocation of $1.5 million for the installation of HVAC system improvements at TMS and TIS. And there were a number of questions from the council members when we discussed setting the public hearing. I think there'll be more questions that we're going to be emailing in, and hopefully Dr. Willett will be able to provide those answers. But as this is something that directly relates to the Board of Education, I did just want to make sure you are all aware that that public hearing is happening on November 22nd. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. I know that's gonna be a tough day because there's Thanksgiving right there. and some
Yeah,
there's
we had
travel.
talked about that, and,
Yeah.
but that,
As long as they
after
can
the election.
get, the information to you, if they have questions that would be told prior to,
Yeah,
then, I know you're more than willing to answer,
absolutely.
because I don't think anybody else would really necessarily be able to answer.
Right, maybe what we could do,
Kind of
just to
buffer
make
on
sure
you.
that we have process for that, if you could reach out to Steve Jones and
Okay.
say, could you share your questions so that we have one central, you could send it back to you and me. And that way, we've got one central place with the questions, and I'll look wherever they come in, I'll take them. But if there's a way that could come, directly to us as a group, I can then attack,
I
address
will
that.
try my best. I will write an email.
The only other thing is timeliness. The sooner that I have the questions, the more effective I can be.
Okay.
And it's-
And I would also say that public hearing is a hybrid public hearing. That was one of the items that was pointed out, as Dr. Willett said. It's it's the week of Thanksgiving, but it is a hybrid meeting. So members of the public can attend virtually. And the link, of course, is on our agendas.
Thank you so much, Katie, with the extra information, so that if anybody would like to join in and they're not around, you can do a hybrid. See what happens. You don't have to necessarily.
Yeah.
As long as they get the questions before, you can get those answers to them, because I don't think anyone else can answer. Okay, so at this point, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
Can I do a quick point? of
Oh, go ahead,
information? I'm
yeah,
sorry.
oh, yeah.
Not to belabor anything, but I did just, thank you for pointing out, Mrs. Hope, you said, that page. What it does sound like to me is it's kind of a dump of Google Classroom.
It is, and
Right.
and so because she has the ability to put that up there for all of us parents.
Yeah.
She has the ability to say,
we've updated this or we've sent that, or there's a notice on the Google, on our team
I don't mean to
website.
be rude, but it's really not supposed to be a back and forth at
Sorry.
this point, and that's, I
So I
cut
just-
off other people like that, and I just feel like if I let you go, just because you're
It's
the only one
okay.
here,
Nope, it's
people
good.
are gonna email me.
You got a point.
I just wanted to thank you for pointing that out. No, I'm not. But I want, it was great to point that out, and I want to piggyback. I mean, it is about communication. Like you said, you talked about like the announcements, that's available to see on the Google Classroom stream. You can go in by classes, and what I'm not sure that every parent knows, it was funny because I dealt with it at parents' night, and I kind of became then the one helping people on their phone, is I actually have my child's, both of them, the Google Classroom on my phone.
Yeah.
So I'm able to check it, I'm able to see their stream, I'm able to check their to-do list to see if they have missing assignments, and yes, their teachers, I have a middle schooler and a high schooler, they post weekly agendas, they post work, so that if the students miss, you can access it easily. So, maybe there's a opportunity to just, I don't think we can ask every educator to do that. I think that's great that Mrs. Hope did that and shared that in that way. Definitely something to benchmark.
Well, the team has it.
But maybe a reminder just to parents that they can access that information. It is available to them in Google Classroom. It is an app that they can put on their phone for convenience, so that information is readily available, because sometimes, that stuff does get lost in the shuffle. And especially with the winter months coming up and kids being sick and things like that, it's certainly a great reminder. So maybe we can figure out a way to do that in the superintendent's bulletin, or maybe even a quick Facebook post, just a reminder that is accessible. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. We officially all set, Diana, you're good over there, Dana's good. Okay,